The All Blacks may have walked away from Cape Town with a 38-21 victory over the Stormers, but the final score tells only part of the story, because for Dave Rennie and his coaching staff this was a match that produced almost as many questions as answers. The result keeps the momentum of the new All Blacks era moving in the right direction, but the performance exposed several areas that must improve dramatically before New Zealand faces the much greater challenge of the Springboks. The biggest talking point was undoubtedly Beauden Barrett, whose return to the international picture was supposed to provide another opportunity to demonstrate that his experience and class could still make him a central figure in the All Blacks' plans. Instead, the veteran fly-half endured an unusually difficult evening, with mistakes and weaknesses under the high ball preventing him from producing the commanding performance many supporters expected. There were still flashes of his trademark attacking ability, and Barrett helped create moments when the All Blacks looked dangerous with ball in hand, but this was ultimately a reminder that reputation alone will not guarantee selection under Rennie. Competition for places is becoming increasingly intense, and every player knows that performances in matches like this can influence the pecking order. For Barrett, the positive is that his experience gives him another opportunity to respond, but the pressure has undoubtedly increased. Behind him, Cortez Ratima produced one of the more encouraging performances of the night. With Cam Roigard remaining an important figure in the scrum-half discussion, Ratima needed to demonstrate that he can provide genuine competition, and his ability to increase tempo, make sensible kicking decisions, and threaten around the fringes gave Rennie plenty to consider. The scrum-half position is becoming increasingly important in modern test rugby because the player controlling the game from the base can determine how quickly a team attacks and how effectively it manages territory. If Ratima can continue developing this consistency, he could put himself much closer to the test conversation. In the backline, Leroy Carter was one of the more exciting performers for the All Blacks. His pace, strength, and willingness to attack defenders provided New Zealand with another source of momentum, and his ability to finish opportunities demonstrated the confidence that younger players need when stepping into a highly competitive environment. Rieko Ioane, meanwhile, showed encouraging signs after returning to action. There were moments when his explosiveness and attacking instincts reminded everyone why he has been such an important member of the All Blacks setup, although his aerial work remains an area that opponents will continue to examine. Against the Springboks, that could become a particularly important issue because South Africa have built enormous pressure around the contestable kick. Any weakness under the high ball can become a territorial problem, and the All Blacks cannot afford to give away possession cheaply against a side that thrives on turning mistakes into pressure. Anton Segner also had a mixed evening. His attacking contribution improved as the game progressed, and his handling helped maintain tempo in midfield, but another disciplinary issue involving a high tackle creates an obvious concern. Rennie will want his players to be aggressive without crossing the line, because playing with 14 men against a team as physically strong as the Springboks can completely change the outcome of a test. Discipline, therefore, needs to become a priority as the tour develops. In the forwards, Anton Segner continued to impress. His physical approach, willingness to work in tight areas, and ability to cross the gain line make him an intriguing player for the new All Black setup. He does not appear intimidated by the demands of international rugby, and that mentality could become increasingly valuable. Peter Lakai also showed glimpses of why he is regarded as an exciting prospect. His early break demonstrated his attacking ability, while his late involvement in a crucial turnover and subsequent attacking movement helped create the opportunity that effectively sealed the result. That combination of breakdown work, carrying, and skill is precisely what modern loose forwards are expected to provide. Simon Parker, however, experienced a more difficult evening. Like Leroy, he found himself in disciplinary trouble, and unlike some of his teammates, he struggled to impose himself consistently during his time on the field. That will give Rennie another selection question to consider as he continues searching for the right balance in the back row. The performance of Patrick Tuipulotu was solid without reaching the same level of dominance he showed in earlier tests. The Stormers deserve credit for matching the physicality of the All Blacks, and that made life difficult for Tuipulotu and the other New Zealand forwards. The most positive story in the pack, however, was undoubtedly Fabian Holland. After missing a significant period of rugby, including Super Rugby Pacific and the recent Nations Championship campaign, his return could hardly have been more encouraging. Holland played with the energy of someone desperate to make up for lost time, contributing heavily around the field while also producing important work at line-out time. His performance immediately places him back into the conversation for the upcoming test matches. And that is excellent news for Rennie because competition in the second row is essential when facing the enormous physical challenge presented by the Springboks. The front row produced a more complicated picture. Samisoni Taukeiaho delivered a strong performance, combining reliable set-piece work with physical contributions in defense and attack. His ability to make powerful carries and deliver big defensive interventions gives the All Blacks another important option at hooker. George Bower also provided a steady performance at loosehead, but the tight head position remains a concern after the Stormers managed to expose weaknesses and force penalties. Pacilio Tosi in particular had a difficult night, struggling technically at scrum time and giving away several penalties. Those issues cannot simply be ignored because the upcoming challenge against the Springboks will be vastly more demanding. South Africa's scrum has been one of their defining weapons for years, and any weakness in the New Zealand front row will immediately become a target. This is perhaps the biggest lesson Rennie can take from the Cape Town encounter. The All Blacks have enough attacking quality to score points, but their path toward success against the world's strongest teams will depend on whether they can withstand the physical pressure that comes before those attacking opportunities. The Stormers provided exactly the kind of examination that New Zealand needed. They were physical, they competed aggressively at the set piece, and they refused to allow the All Blacks to dominate for the full 80 minutes. That meant the visitors had to work for their victory, and although the final score eventually became convincing, the performance was far from perfect. For Rennie, that may actually be beneficial. A comfortable win with no obvious weaknesses would provide confidence, but a win that exposes specific areas for improvement provides something arguably more valuable: a clear development plan. The All Blacks now know they need to improve their aerial execution, tighten their discipline, strengthen the scrum, and become more consistent when defending periods of sustained pressure. They also need greater clarity around selection. Players such as Barrett, Ratima, Leroy Carter, Fabian Holland, Anton Segner, and Peter Lakai have all provided different answers, while others have made the coaching staff think twice about their positions. That competition is healthy because New Zealand cannot afford complacency. The arrival of the Springboks showdown means every weakness will be magnified. South Africa will not allow the All Blacks to recover easily from mistakes, and they will test the scrum, line-out, kicking game, breakdown, defense, and discipline relentlessly. The good news for Rennie is that his team is still developing, and there is time to correct these problems. The unbeaten start to his tenure has created momentum, but momentum alone will not defeat the Springboks. The All Blacks must become more complete, more disciplined, and more consistent. The victory over the Stormers, therefore, should not be judged simply by the 38-21 scoreline. It should be viewed as another stage in the rebuilding process. Some players strengthened their claims, some created new questions, and others were reminded that international selection must be earned every time they step onto the field. The most encouraging development may ultimately be the return of Fabian Holland, whose performance showed that the All Blacks are gaining another powerful forward option at exactly the right time. The most concerning issue is arguably the set piece, because that is where the Springboks are likely to apply maximum pressure. And the biggest individual storyline remains Beauden Barrett, who now has to respond to a difficult performance with the experience and class that have defined his career. If he does that, the competition for the fly-half position becomes even more fascinating. If he cannot, Rennie has already shown that he is willing to look at alternatives. That is the central message from Cape Town. Nobody is guaranteed a place, every performance matters, and the All Blacks are being built around competition rather than reputation. The victory over the Stormers was therefore useful, but the real examination is still ahead. Dave Rennie will know that his team has made progress, yet he will also understand that the distance between a good All Black side and a championship-winning All Black side is measured in the details. Against the Springboks, those details could determine everything.